Joe in Langley is on the line. Joe, hi, go ahead.
Thank you, Sean. Quick question for Bill Tieleman. I wonder who he wants to campaign against in 2013. I know he's a real brawler. I know he's a real fighter. I know he's the kind of guy you don't want to go up against on a bad day. I'm wondering who he wants to go up against, Kevin Falcon, Christy Clark, Stillwell, or the other guys.
I'm guessing Kevin Falcon there, Bill Tieleman.
Well, this is an interesting question, but I really don't think, Joe, it's going to be 2013. I'm quite convinced it'll be 2011, and I really don't see how, no matter who gets picked, they just sit there and say, you know what, we have fixed election dates, so I'm going to govern with no mandate from British Columbians for 2 years. That could be just fatal in and of itself. So that's number one. Look, it'd be very interesting. Kevin Falcon looks, and his style is a lot like Gordon Campbell's My Way or the Highway. Christy Clark could split the federal liberal, federal conservative caucus, and the support that they have there, the so-called Free Enterprise Coalition, that could split either way with either of those two. Mike DeYoung, I like Mike because he said the HST is like a pig putting lipstick on a pig. So I sort of like Mike for being honest about that thing, but I don't think he's going to be the winner or more Stillwell. So, I think, and George Abbott, George is a guy who's been underestimated. He says that sort of...
He's a dark horse.
He has some of those Jimmy Stewart sort of, qualities about him, and I think he's someone who should not be underestimated as possibly a compromise candidate who comes up the middle, and because of the rural split, as you know, Sean, that's going to give rural ridings a lot more votes than they would have had otherwise, and the mass sign-ups we've seen in previous party leaderships of all sorts, of every stripe, won't happen in the same way, won't be the same, have the same effect as the Shuswap riding will have as many as Surrey Panorama Ridge.
You have written about Christy Clark certainly having what you see as baggage around the BC rail trial, and I'm not going to jump into that too much right now, Bill, but I wanted to ask you about her proposal on the HST, which left some of us scratching our heads. She says, forget the referendum. The result is a fait accompli. Let's just go back to the legislature and vote on this thing once and for all. And why I found that puzzling is that I don't see any indication that the result of that vote would be any different, Bill. What's the advantage to Christy's proposal?
I'm mystified, too, and I did hear Bill Vanderzam talking about it and sort of saying, great idea. I think if what Christy meant, and she did not say this, and she should clarify, if what she meant was, I think Liberal MLAs should come into the legislature and vote down the HST, then just say so, if that's what you mean. If you mean just have another vote where it's, the government would not fall on it and they could say yes or no, but how would you explain to the public that Colin Hansen's colleagues and Premier Campbell's colleagues get up there and vote it down with them sitting in the room with them when they just voted it through? I just think it's a non-starter. I think if Christy wants to show a leadership position, he should do what I think Mike DeYoung is suggesting and say, I would kill the HST. But we've got, all these tapes of her show, her defending it endlessly, and again, another puzzle to me. Why defend it? I mean, you didn't bring it in. Why not just let it ride if you had leadership ambitions? And
we have tape of all the other candidates in the legislature, of course, standing up and defending it as well. It's very curious. Listen, Bill, you mentioned Colin Hansen. He told reporters, I shouldn't say me, told reporters on Friday that a poll will be coming out from the government's HST Information Office this coming week that will show that perhaps the tax will pass the referendum. He says it'll show from the numbers he's seen that the public anger over the HST is on the decline. Are you hearing that yourself, Bill Tieleman, Fight HST guy?
No, and we're getting a very good response in the recall campaign against Ida Chong in Victoria. And
are you?
In Oak Bay Gordon Head. I don't know if you saw the TV shots, but I mean, room full of folks. There's people out in the street, people with signs going out canvassing. So, I don't think there's any numbers, and I don't know that they'll report numbers on this one because it's early days, and also I'm not sure it's strategically a good idea to report the numbers. But no, there's a good response to that. I don't think there's any possibility. I mean, if they're so confident about that, then like I've said before, move up the date. Let's get it over with.
Bit of a local story here. That is Ida Chong's people saying they have proof the NDP's now involved in the recall. There's a link from the local, and just follow me through this for my listeners. There's a link from the local Oak Bay Gordon Head NDP Constituency Association's website to the organizer of recall, Colin Nielsen, with a little line on there saying, if you want to help out on recall, this is the guy you talk to. But, of course, there was all those comments that Mo Sahota made earlier about sort of being involved undercover a little bit. How much of a role is the party itself playing in recall?
Well, I'm not aware of any, and I haven't spoken to Mo Sahota in over a year, so I can tell you that I've got no connections there. Look, there's so many little weird connections. Obviously, people who are NDP voters may be interested in recalling Ida Chong, but so are a lot of BC Liberals who are unhappy. And as to the links, look, I mean, I'm following ChristyClarkFan on my Twitter account. Does that mean I'm working for Christy Clark?